Name is the nature of how a thing is. Name is the nature of how a thing works. If you really want to know yourself and you really want to connect to nature, know the numerology involved in the name that you carry around and identify with subconsciously and consciously. As a child while growing up, one of the first few subconscious program brought out into conscious and also conditioned from the conscious into the subconscious by our parents is to constantly remind you what your name is, either by testing you by asking you where do you live, how old are you, what's your name, or by just identifying you with it. And thus you do the same permanently for the rest of your life. Those are one of the first few things in life that we learn without augmenting, challenging, or even thinking about it, because it's just what we identify with. Again, name is the same thing as nature. And there is that shortened clause within a phrase called know thyself. You cannot know yourself if you study a lot of the other spiritual stuff. If you can't start first with your own nature, your nature is infinite. But remember the conscious conditioning that affects the subconscious, which is identification of name. Everything that exists in the physical world, whether you know it or not, has a name. Name is how you pull the essence, the function, the nature of a thing into the material world. And every human walking around carries it. Names are so important that when doing certain spiritual things, until you call certain names, it will not work. Names are so important that people can do things to you spiritually. If they don't call your name, it just will not work. Because the name is what the subconscious, aka the spirit, aka the divine intelligence, aka the electromagnetic spectrum, that act as a blanket and as a field that covers everything far beyond the sphere and earth, far beyond our solar system, far beyond our galaxy. It's infinite. That subconscious or preconscious is the nature of how things work. And in spirituality, we always speak about connecting back to nature. One cannot connect back to nature if they don't begin with themselves, if they don't know their own nature. So find a numerology word calculator. I'm sure you all know words are equivalent to number. A is 1, B 2, C 3, D 4, so and so, all the way up to 9. And the true number starts from 0 to 9. That's the reason why even when you get to 10, which is J, it just becomes 1 because you add 1 and 0. When you get to K, which is 11, you add 1 and 1, which is 2. So 9 is the limit, ultimately. So I'm sure some of you already know that. But with names, there's a word calculator to get the numerology equivalents, and each number has a significance in how it behaves. The secret to nature being your name, and your name being the essence that your subconscious uses as a way to connect to everything else, is in the equivalence of the number that attaches to you. Let's look at a common name. John. 2. Relation, cooperation, diplomacy, balance, union, receptive, partnership, yin, ambivalence, and emotion. When they say people can identify who you are and feel who you are before even speaking to you, and that is assuming that people are not those who have been conditioned to just use impulse of fear. I'm not speaking about those type of people. I'm speaking about people with minimally the thing that's not so common, called common sense. When you walk in a room, that thing someone feels intrinsically, that intuitive ability to feel something about someone. Believe it or not, the first few intuitive things that we feel is the nature of someone's name when you meet them. And I'm sure you've experienced this, where the mind throws about 3 or 4 things to you at once, regardless of whether anything else is posed to you, but only regarding the environment itself. Usually the first thing that comes to mind is the highest probability and usually the main thing that you will put to use. Then the second thing is what could come after that as a substitute. but you should always go with the first. That doesn't mean the second is wrong. The first that usually comes to people when you meet others is the nature behind the numbers, which is the mathematical equivalence. Remember, math is the language of the universe. So each name has a numerical equivalence that causes them to control that man or woman that identify with that mathematical equivalence of that name subconsciously, whether they realize that it exists or not. And that is what you naturally feel when you first see someone or hear someone or associate with someone. So for man to know thyself, first know the nature, aka the numerology, aka the mathematical equivalence of your name. Start there. A website you can use is what you're looking at right here. Not advertising for them. They don't compensate me in any way. But another website you can also use is this website. I'm sure you can see it for yourself. You can just type the name and you see better explanation. This one just gives you the summary in short. This website gives you greater details. So I'll put the link of these under this video's description. So for instance, this right here is the summary. See, this will tell you the positive attribute of it, but know that there's also a negative attribute. So when it comes to relations, if someone named John, assuming they don't have a last name. So if you have a last name, you will put the last name there also. So the combination of those number equivalents to those letters will be what the numerology is, which is the nature that your mind attracts and identifies with, whether you consciously accept it or not. But the moment you know about a thing is the first moment of creating the solution. Remember, the way you were subconsciously conditioned to accept the nature behind that name and the working of that numerology is as a child when people call it and you respond, or the people ask you, what is your name? And you tell them so and so. And you go to school and you start to write your name on your books and your pages, so and so. And even in the adult world, when you sign up for stuff, which in 21st century, you should probably already know this when it comes to online things, you probably shouldn't be using your real name for the purpose of data brokers and things of that nature. They can your information can be easily corroborated, bought, and sold, which makes privacy as good as useless. And in the process of your name being bought or sold privately, it leaks out into the public one way or the other. And on that note, see why names are valuable? They buy and sell it. It's a spiritual essence that's transferring, and they have to keep track of that. See, those who are engaging in the business of information, they know the value of it based on certain things with math. And the internet is nothing but math. So create your own reality by protecting your own privacy, just as a side note. And also to let you know, those selling information, some of them might just be waking up and sleeping looking for something to put on their table. But those who create those companies, they know these things we're speaking of. And they are doing it from this level. This goes all the way to name of your business and things like that. So while the positive aspect exists, so does the negative, which is always the polarity of things, part of nature's law also. So if, for instance, a child is having an issue, maybe an anger issue for whatever reason, and you look at their name, you can see the source of where whatever that issue of that child is, and you can start to take it from there. Because now remember the lessons we had in the past, where certain planets are equivalents to certain emotions in certain planets. Now you can combine these attributes of name of that child with the nature of those plants. Add it to honey, have the child consume it every morning, first in the morning when they wake up. Small things like that makes a huge difference. And here we have 21st century, so-called the greatest country in the world, and most of their children are on drugs. Most of their children are walking around sedated. Most of their children, their chemical structure in their brain is all jacked up because their parents just throw them in the hands of so-called doctors. Because a doctor is a term of prestige, someone who's going to fix the world, someone who has love for humanity. Most of these people who allege to be doctors in today's world, they don't have that in their hearts. So that's why I say they are allegedly doctors. So parents just throw their children to them and they just scramble their brains further. Yet you wonder why most children are fucked up in today's world. And the food they consume have all these screwed up things in it also. And based on the nature of that child, that the child's subconscious mind has been caused to identify with, the way these chemicals react and respond, it would attack certain mathematical equivalents of that child's subconscious mind. Remember, the cells in your brain, heart, liver, blood, bone, so and so are subconscious. They are coming from somewhere. No different than thoughts. Thoughts are not readily stored in your mind or your body or your head. No, it's coming from somewhere. It's coming through a funnel from the preconscious mind, which has to do with the nature of who you are and how you express yourself. And chemical is the medium and the gateway and the highway from the preconscious to the conscious. Again, this thing's called chemical is the highway of how preconscious, subconscious connect to the conscious, which is the physical body and the material world. It's the reason why when people speak of spirituality and they tell you the food you eat affects you, they're right on that end. But I'm not looking at it from the perspective of because I eat this food, I'm better than you. That's some other bullshit, low self-esteem that people are using to hide their own filth. No different than people use religion and Bible and Quran and whatever the fuck they're doing to hide their own pathetic nature, or pedophiles who do fucked up shit to children who use religion. We're not doing that here. What I'm telling you is there's a pragmatic nature to certain things on both ends. Going extreme is where it's fucked up. You take what's beneficial to you and put it to use. These chemicals that exist in food affect the highway to which the preconscious connects to the conscious. And if there's no consistent connection of the subconscious, aka the preconscious, with the conscious, there's no way you can ever get to the superconscious, because your link to the subconscious has to be strong enough for the superconscious to activate. So now you have all these people confused about basic law of gender. If you look at the Hermetic principles, you see one of the basic laws of nature is gender. '21st century, so-called the most advanced country in the world, children and adults alike are having issues with nature's law called gender. One of those 7 publicly available is gender. Something is chemically wrong with these people's mind. The highway that transfers the subconscious to the conscious is fucked up. And part of it is because these people don't do basic things like know the mathematical equivalents attached to their name. If you start there, all the bullshit you see in books, medical books, and all these people with titles and PhDs that they want to make it sophisticated and then go on the news and tell you, oh no, you can't do this now, you can do this. You can fix it easily. Look at the numerology of your name. Look at the detriment of it involved in you. You don't even have to read all the details. Even you, when you look at this, if your name is John, you know the part of you that's fucked up. You might be horrible at diplomacy, or you might be excellent at it. If you look at this first few 7 description, it deals with being able to come together, balance, union, cooperation, relation, diplomacy. You might be great at all this or not. And there are planets that deals with this. So for instance, Venus, the planet Venus always deals with friendship, family, cooperation. Now that's the planet. But then there's the constellation that planet corresponds to, which is Taurus. It brings union. So what you'll find is a plant that has the attribute of Venus. If you take that plant, mix it together, with salt, because salt is used to activate spiritual essence of things. Salt is one of the most primordial elements on earth. Get as much of that plant, mix it about a teaspoon of salt, and then add it into water. And take showers with it every night, or take baths with it. You see a difference when it comes to relationship and cooperation. So just can't get along. That's simple things like that. That's how you pragmatically use spirituality. Because at the end, those plants and you are organisms. We went over it in the past. The term organism is from ancient Greek, derived from organon, meaning instrument, implement, a tool. You are just a tool. That plant is just a tool for a consciousness that split itself into many different places to learn and accomplish certain things. In the process of that, you have certain cell structures that is compatible with those plants that you can use to balance or patch things within you that's deprived temporarily. That's why these plants exist. That's why when you look at all these theological texts, it tells you man is the highest form of creature that has dominion over plants, animals, so and so. That's what that means. There's a similitude of you in those things. And there's a nature involved in those things in you that if you're deprived of it one way or the other, by using the intellect provided to humans that other forms of animals don't, or other organisms don't, such as the intellect that allows you to look at your name and see the mathematical equivalence and the attribute and the pattern and the fortune involved in that mathematical equivalence. You can then use the other parts of nature to balance and patch whatever it is that you lack. That's a great gift that you have as humanity. Put it to use. Until next time, take care. Best of luck.